Okay, I hope everything is working now. Let's see, off, on, live. Good to go. Okay, here we go then. Hello! Shadowcat back! I actually forgot to schedule the stream this time. So, yeah, that got done like a half an hour before I was supposed to go live. Usually I try to do that at least 24 hours in advance. Just, you know, so the stream is out there properly, and I mean, I kind of feel that's good policy. I mean, if you're going to do a regularly scheduled stream, have it scheduled at regular times. And I failed, because I'm terrible. But that doesn't matter now, because we're here, and we're doing this thing. And I want to do this thing, and we're going to do this thing. So, last time we were here, we actually did come across our first banned card. I mean, kind of a unique situation, but sometimes decisions had to be made. And I think we're making a lot of good progress, just defining a lot of the basic terms that we need. Like, we still need to go through and do the list of all the basic keywords. Things like drawing, milling, graveyard, deck, you know, all of those things. And we're defining a few of them as we're going. So, this is a good thing. But today, we're getting back to the keyword list, so let's go ahead and pull that up. And we're going to go ahead and pull up the browser too, because we're going to need that. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it. But before we do that, we'll say hello to everybody in the chat. I see Blizz is in the chat. Hello, Blizz. Good to see you. I see JP's in the chat. Hello, JP. Good to see you too. And that is banned, as in B-A-N-N-E-D, as in no. The fuse cards will not be allowed in the game. They're clever, and I like them, but they have no part, or they have no place in the role-playing game. As far as banding goes, we did that already. That one was really close to the top. So, where are we now? We are on to bestow. Whatever that means, because I actually don't know that word. Well, I know the word, I don't know the term in Magic the Gathering. So let's take a look. What is bestow and what do it do? So, bestow is a keyword ability introduced in Theros, where it's connected to the god theme of the set. It allows one to cast certain enchant creatures as auras, granting or bestowing upon the enchanted creature their power, toughness, and abilities. I mean, it sounds cool. Let's take a look and see exactly what they do. So there's 43 cards that do this, which is kind of a lot, actually. I don't really want to go through all the rules because it seems pretty basic. Let's just take a look. We got down here as an example, Thassa's Emissary. So it's a blue card, costs 3 blue. It's a 3/3 creature. So you can play it as a creature, and it's a giant enemy crab. I suppose you could attack the weak point for massive damage, but if you didn't want to do that, you could bestow it. And so by bestowing it, it actually costs 5+ blue. And as an aura on the enchanted creature, it becomes, or let's see. If you cast where its bestow costs an aura spell with enchant creature, it becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. Interesting. So whenever Thassa's Emissary or enchanted creature deals combat damage to the player, draw a card, and enchanted creature gets +3/+3. Okay, so if you play for the bestow cost, as it says right here, it is an aura with enchant creature, which then is going to direct us down here to the enchant creature. And in this case, it seems pretty direct. It's a 3/3 crab, and it's going to give its power and toughness to whatever creature you put it on. Now, it does say that it becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. Now, I wonder, does that mean that if the creature dies, does the crab stay in play, or are we talking about just some niche card that can unequip an enchantment? I don't know. Let's look at the rulings. So on the stack, spell with bestow is either a creature spell or an aura spell, but is never both. Okay. Unlike other aura spells, an aura spell with bestow isn't countered if its target is illegal as it begins to resolve. Rather, the effect making an aura spell ends. It loses enchant creature. It returns back to being an enchantment creature spell and resolves and enters the battlefield as an enchantment creature. Okay. Let's see. Unlike other auras, an aura with bestow isn't put into its graveyard if it becomes unattached. Rather, it loses the enchant creature. It remains on the battlefield as an enchantment creature. It can attack, and its tap abilities can be activated if it has any. On the turn, it becomes unattached if it's been under your control continuously, even as an aura, since your most recent turn began. And a battlefield permanent with bestow enters the battlefield in any other method other than being cast. It will be an enchantment creature. You cannot choose to pay the bestowment cost and have it become an aura. I don't believe there's anything in here that says that it works like an equipment. I think if it is an aura attached to a creature and the creature dies, the aura is going to go with it. So, yeah, I mean, it basically has the ability to transfer itself between being a creature or boosting another creature, which I think is fine. In the case of this giant crab, it's really simple. If you use the bestow cost, you can attach it to another creature, and that creature will get +3 strength and +3 constitution, which would give it an automatic, at least, because it is an odd number, at least a +1 to all attack rolls and all melee damage rolls, as well as anything that requires strength, and an automatic +1 hit point per level. However, because it is an odd number, if you were to do this to a creature that already had an odd number, say the creature had 13 strength and 13 constitution automatically, which is only a +1 bonus, by doing this to that creature, it kicks it up to 16/16 in strength and constitution, which are +3 bonuses. So not bad. Now, as far as making this work, if you cast this card for the bestow cost, it's an aura spell with an enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. I don't think we need to really change anything there. That's a pretty good summary of what it's supposed to do. So I think that we can just copy and paste this. I don't even see anything that I necessarily need to alter. So we'll default format that, and then we'll use the format painter to make it readable again. Yeah, if you cast this card for the bestow cost, it's an aura spell with enchant creature. Now, one of the things that I don't think it can do is once it has been played, I do not think that it can become an aura spell after. At least I don't think that it can. Okay, here we go. So, bestow represents a static ability that functions in any zone from which you could play the card on. Bestow cost means as you cast this spell, you may choose to have it or cast it as bestowed. If you do, pay that cost instead. So, no, I do not believe that it can bestow another creature after it has been played. However, again, that does mean that if it gets removed from the creature in some way instead of going back to your hand. I mean, unless it specifically says that, it would just become a creature again. If I'm understanding it right. It's a little on the confusing side. But either way, I kind of like it. I like the idea. And I do like the versatility. I think that having a decent knowledge of Magic the Gathering is going to do you well, because it's going to allow you to build a deck, or at least a repertoire, that is going to be very versatile. Why would you pick a regular, normal creature when you can pick a creature that does so very many other things? This is actually kind of part of the power creep that has affected Magic the Gathering for a very long time. Once upon a time, creatures were primarily just creatures, and some creatures had special abilities on them. As time has gone on, though, you will scarcely see anymore a creature that is just a creature. And because of that, in order to keep the economy of the game going, these creatures now, with all these added abilities, have had their mana cost lowered to equal to, or sometimes even below, a lot of the older cards that don't have any kind of other special abilities. I mean, a great example that I can give is I have a red deck with Raging Goblins. Now, Raging Goblins are 1/1 creatures, and they cost 1 to play, but they come with haste. Let's see. I could even pull one up. There he is. Yeah, there's a Raging Goblin. And so, it's a 1/1 that costs 1, but he has haste, which means that as soon as he's played, he can go to work. If you play him on turn 1 and you're the first person playing, well, guess what? You can hit your opponent and there's nothing they can do about it. However, there are so very many other cards that cost 1 and give a 1/1 creature that have nothing on them. Why would you ever take that if you had an option? That's why I think these bestow cards are going to be kind of cool, because you're going to have a creature card, or you're going to have an aura card that you'll be able to use at some point down the road. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Tribute. No, not the song. Good song, though. Alright, Tribute is a static ability found on creatures featured in Born of the Gods. It gives opponents an unfortunate choice. Have the creature grow in size, or allow powerful enters the battlefield ability to trigger. While Punisher mechanics have fans, the entire mechanic of them did not land. Despite the fact that all of them were creatures, designing meaningful tribute effects was difficult, so the mechanic landed on an 8 on the scale. And it only appears on 11 cards, period. So I don't think they were terribly I don't think they were terribly impressed. Take a look at the ruling. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the example, actually. So the Nessian Demo Lock. So it's a green creature. It costs 3 plus 2 green to play. It's a 3/3 creature with Tribute 3. So what does Tribute 3 mean? I can't read that, so I gotta look at the plain text. As the creature enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice may put 3 1/1 counters on it. When Nessian Demolock enters the battlefield, if Tribute wasn't played, if Tribute wasn't paid, destroy target non-creature permanent. So they have a choice. They either turn the 3/3 into a 6/6, or you get to blow something of theirs up. I cannot imagine any time that I would intentionally put 3 1/1 counters onto my opponent's card, which essentially just means that this thing is going to blow something up when it comes into the field. Now, either it does say a non-creature permanent, so maybe I don't have any non-creature permanents. I don't know. That would just depend on whoever is playing at the moment. Although a non-creature permanent could also be land. Now, if I have something that I really, really need on the field, like I've conjured some kind of scepter that I'm using, then maybe, yes, it's important. And I might pay that, but that's kind of awful. And again, we're looking at something similar to that crab from Bestow. So 3 1/1 counters are going to be a +1 strength and +1 constitution counter bonus on our creatures, which could kick them up anywhere from 1 to 2, well, no, 1 to 3 actually, depending on what it is. So 1 to 3 strength bonus and constitution bonus, which is actually less significant in Pathfinder than it would be in Magic the Gathering. Those counters go a lot further in Magic the Gathering. So anyway, what are we going to do with the translation? Do we need to actually change anything? As this creature enters the battlefield. So actually it's just when summoned. And we might phrase it exactly as that. An opponent of your choice may put 3 1/1 counters on it. Now that's interesting because I was just thinking, what would happen if I was to just summon this thing in the middle of town? Okay? Now this is what we got to think of. We have to think about what happens with these things out of combat too. Because what if I went into town and I summoned it? The first thing that we have to establish is, number one, when it's summoned. Okay, so when summoned, this is going to happen. We've established that. Next, an opponent of my choice. Well, what does that mean? Does an opponent have to be hostile to me? Am I issuing a challenge here? What does an opponent mean? And I really kind of want to look at that. So I'm going to look for a class called the Cavalier. Now, we've looked at the Cavalier a couple of times because these are your prototypical knight in shining armor. But one of the things that they can do is they have the ability to challenge. And it starts at once per day, but it grows as they grow. So it says here, challenge. Once per day, a Cavalier can challenge a foe to combat. As a swift action, they choose a target within sight to challenge. The Cavalier's melee attacks deal extra damage whenever their attacks are made against the target of the challenge. The extra damage is equal to the Cavalier's level. They can use it once per day, plus an additional time for every 3 levels beyond. And then, they get some other things that can enhance their challenges. But it does specifically say challenge a foe. Meaning that if you are if you're a Cavalier, it doesn't seem like you can just ride your horse into town, pick one random peasant off the road, and challenge them. Because they're not your foe. They're neutral. And I guess arguments could be made depending on, say, alignments in certain towns. Like if you are a lawful good Cavalier and you walk into a town that is chaotic evil, maybe then you could challenge anyone. But that would be a very specific situation. In this case, I, as the GM, would say you can't just challenge random people to combat. So too, when I look at tribute, I think that we could replace opponent with foe, meaning that no one who doesn't already intend you harm could be targeted. And JP says, easily fixed. People become combative easily. I mean, again, that goes back to town generation and what is the town like. I think I don't know if I've gone over the town generator that I have. And I don't think that I even have it handy, honestly. I might have it in my Star Trek stuff. Let me see where my okay, no, that's the roster. Station or planet generator. Here we go. Yeah. So I use this for designing space stations for my Star Trek game, the B Team. And if you're unfamiliar with that, that's because you're not playing it. And if you would like to play it, you need to go to the Discord, join the Discord, come to the Behind the Screen channel, and let me know what your availability is so that we can try to get you into the game. Or, you know, any other game once they have enough interest. But, taking a look at this, and this could be a little bit prettier. Let me pretty it up a bit. So, let me pretty this up with just some simple borders. Because right now it's not meant for anyone else to look at. This is just for me. However, all right, switching over to the other spreadsheet. Ignore the stuff over here on the left. It's not important to what we're talking about right now. What I am looking at is this, the space station generator. Now, to make a general space station, of course it's going to need a name, it'll need a population. However, the next is alignment. And every settlement has an alignment. That does not mean this is the alignment of everybody in the settlement, but this is important to what we were just talking about. I can roll a 1d9, and depending on what we get, it can be anywhere from lawful good to chaotic evil. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that in a city that is chaotic evil, that people are just rampaging all over the place, slaughtering wantonly and, you know, turning the streets into rivers of blood? No, it doesn't. We can actually see what a chaotic evil city looks like right here. A chaotic evil city, and I gotta scroll up a little bit, a chaotic evil city would have +1 crime and +1 corruption. Now, what does that mean? That means that anytime you go somewhere, there is a chance that you can have a crime committed upon you. You could be assaulted or robbed walking from place to place. You can get scammed walking into any business. You could be jailed just, you know, because somebody wants to. There could be crimes committed against you, and that falls in line with the whole corruption thing. Anything that you do, expect it to be turned back upon you. Or at least have a chance of it being turned back upon you or punishing you in some way. Every deal is going to try to be made to support the person making the deal. JP says this is DC. Essentially, yeah, Washington, DC is chaotic evil. By every metric that we have. And so, if you are a lawful good cavalier who believes in law and the good of society, and you wander into a chaotic evil town, which is riddled with crime and corruption, then maybe we can make an argument for challenge being open. But otherwise, unless somebody is directly threatening you, I don't think we can. The same thing is true for the actual kinds of government. There's 9 types of government that are detailed in Pathfinder. And those are the autocracy, a colonial government, a council, a dynasty, a military government, an overlord, a secret syndicate, which is, again, basically DC, a plutocracy, and a utopian experiment. And each one of those will have all of their own modifiers. And again, when we look at things like the colonial, it's also got a +2 corruption. If you're neutral, or if you're a lawful good character, you're probably going to have a problem here. But these are niche things. Like, everything would have to fall perfectly into place for you to do that. And so I have to assume that challenging a foe or challenging an opponent has to be some kind of hostile opponent to you. Which means, getting back to our Magic the Gathering example here, if it has to be a hostile foe, then that means that as this creature enters the battlefield, if there is no foe around you to choose, then this entire thing is no longer even an option. Meaning, since there is no tribute that can be played, this is forced to happen. And I have to notice that it says here, when the Nessian Demoloch enters the battlefield, if tribute wasn't paid, the word may is not in here. And we have to be very, very specific. The word may is not in here, which means there's an anime that I really like. It's a sleeper of an anime. It's called S. Cryed. And I don't know if anyone has seen it. And if you haven't seen it, hold on, let me pull up at least a picture of the title and everything. How am I going to do this? Oop, bring that back. Okay, hold on a second. I need a different browser. So give me just a moment to pull up another one of these so I could use one in the background. Let's go ahead and we're going to move this one to its own window that I can use. And then, no, I don't want that. I am just screwing everything up today. Technical difficulties. And that is still not the right page either. There we go. That's what I wanted. All the effort to try and make things look seamless, and I can't even do that. Alright, so what I want here is a great little poster for it. Can I find a good poster? It's not the greatest poster, but you know what? I'll take it. I just need this image opened in a new tab. Oh, this is the Blu-ray cover. That's cool. Alright, then let's move this tab to start. No, I don't want to move it to start. I want to move it to my other page. Can I not do that? No, things that I missed from Chrome. That's okay, though. Here we go. Alright. So, the image is a little bit cut off, but that's fine. This is S. Cryed. Now, the whole idea of S. Cryed, and I'm not going to try and summarize it here, but either way, something happened and now people have superpowers. But not superpowers like in comic books. Not, you know, oh, this person can fly, this person has super strength, whatever. They have an ability called Alter, which allows them to alter either themselves or their environment in some way. Now, one of the reasons that I bring this up is because right here on the cover, you've got your two main antagonists. You can tell they're the two protagonists because one is red, one is blue. Well, I guess one is orange and one is blue. Either way. The guy here on the right has the ability to alter his own body. He can get a super powerful armored blasty arm. Okay. The one on the left, he can create a thing. Like a little person. And it fights for him. The one thing that they have in common, though, they and every single other alter user, though, is that whenever they use their abilities, they require mass to do so. And so one of the things that you'll notice when you watch the series is that every time they use it, they literally disintegrate parts of the environment. Rocks, trees, cars, buildings, chunks of the ground. It will literally just vaporize into particles that will rebuild whatever it is that they need to. This strikes me as being an anime depiction of what this is doing right here. When this creature is summoned, if tribute wasn't paid, destroy target non-creature permanent. Which means that I think we have to establish, number one, what is going to be destroyed, and number two, how much is going to be destroyed. When we look at Eskryed, at the very beginning of the series, when all of the abilities are like really, really low, and these people use their alter abilities, they'll do things like vaporize a few rocks around them. Especially when people are working like a quarry or something, they'll go to use it and a few rocks will disappear, and it'll reform into their alter ability. Towards the end of the series, if somebody is like floating in the middle of the air and they use their alter ability, they may rip an entire chunk out of a building to rebuild whatever it is they're doing. This is the kind of thing that will have some very interesting implications, because it means that if you summon this thing in the middle of town and it must destroy a permanent, what is getting destroyed and how much does it have to be? And I don't know yet. It's going to have to be a question for later. I do see that PC Unicorn is in the chat. Hello, PC Unicorn. Good to see you. PC Unicorn says, love that anime. It is a really good anime if you've never seen it. Like I said, it's a sleeper. Almost no one has really seen it, and that's kind of unfortunate. Not only is it really good, but it was a short one, and it ended well. I think it's all of like 26 episodes. It was like a one-season anime. It had a beginning, it had a middle, it had an end. It is one complete story. The only reason a lot of people even know about it is because it was on Cartoon Network once upon a time, a long time ago. That's where I remember first seeing it. But outside of that, almost no one's heard of it. So hey, if I've introduced you to a new anime today, then, you know, bully to me. Okay, so, I wonder if I can... Well, no, it says Tribute 3. So, as this creature enters the battlefield, but this could be any number. I think we can copy and paste this as it is, but we'll have to make some modifications. We will have to make some modifications to it. So I'm going to paste it in, and we're going to reformat this. So as this creature enters the battlefield, we're going to change that. So, as this creature enters the battlefield, it's going to be as this creature is summoned. We're next going to say an opponent. We're going to change this to foe. A foe of your choice. Meaning that if you don't have a foe present, you cannot do this. A foe of your choice may put 3 1/1 counters on it. We're going to change this and say, we're going to say your foe may grant this creature a +3 strength and +3 constitution. I spelled that wrong. Counter bonus. And that should be all we need. As this creature is summoned, a foe of your choice may give it a +3 strength constitution bonus. Which then, when we count it to this, it says here, when it enters the battlefield, if tribute wasn't paid. So the qualifier is right here. It's not in here, which means we don't need to add anything more to that. It will be on the individual card. All right, then. I think we can call this one good. I like it. I think it'll be fun, too. I can see why it's very problematic in the actual card game. But for our purposes, I think it'll be all right. All right, next up is Dethrone. Dethrone was found in multiplayer conspiracy set. Magic the Gathering is by default multiplayer. What do you mean? JP says, is there a way to trigger that ability in someone else? Like if I taser them, will it force a morph? Actually, yes. And I do think that you mentioned that before. No, you were talking about a tavern. But yes, actually there is a way to do that. And I'm going to tell you how. So we're going to go down to skills. Now, this is one of the things that whenever I talk to my players, I do try to impress the point on them that they need to have one of 3 skills, okay? This is not necessarily optional. It is technically. I cannot force you to take one of these skills. But if you do not, your character and you as a player will suffer because of it. The 3 skills are Diplomacy, Bluff, or Intimidate. You as a character, you as a player and your character as a person really need to have at least one of those. Because this is essentially the crux of your non-combat interactions. And as you can see, when we look at these, there is not a character or there's not a class that does not have at least one of these. The Alchemist has no Bluff. And it has no Diplomacy, and it has no Intimidate. You know what? I picked a bad example. I did say there's almost none. I guess I found the one who doesn't. Barbarians have Intimidate. They do not have Disguise, and they do not have Bluff. Bards have all 3. Cavaliers have Bluff and Diplomacy, and Intimidate. Or no, wait, that was Bard again. Cavalier has Intimidate, Diplomacy, Bluff. They have all 3. Clerics do not have Bluff, but they do have Diplomacy, and they don't have Intimidate. And we can go through all of these, and you can see that most of them have at least something. Druids do not have any of them. However, that's not actually an accident. That's actually kind of a feature. Druids are kind of antisocial by lore. They don't necessarily want to talk to people in any way. Fighters, however, let's see, fighter, bluff, diplomacy. Okay, fighters have intimidate. It's the only one they have. And the point is that you need to have one of these that you can fall back on if you don't want to get into a fight. Again, the alchemists are nerdy bookworms. They don't know how to talk to people, so they're getting into a fight either anyway. But you get what I'm talking about. Now, why do I bring this up? When we look at bluff, so bluffing is an attempt to lie to somebody. Okay, and that's literally what it says here. You know how to tell a lie. Now, there are modifiers to this. So if the target is already friendly to you and wants to believe you, you get a +5 modifier. If it's believable, it's a +0. If it's unlikely, it's a -5. If it is really unlikely, it's a -10. If it's literally impossible, it's a -20. Which doesn't mean it's impossible to succeed. Just really, really hard. Now, what happens if you fail? So, deceiving or lying to somebody. If you use bluff to fool somebody on a successful check, you convince your opponent that what you're saying is true. Bluff checks are modified depending on how believable. We just went through those. However, if you fail to deceive somebody, any further checks made to deceive them are made at a -10 penalty and may be impossible. Okay? As far as consequences for lying to somebody, they can vary. But generally speaking, and I'm going to come back to diplomacy for this one, we have attitudes. Now, the attitude of most people is indifferent by default. Okay? And so, if you're walking down the street, you find somebody, just random person, they don't know who you are don't know who they are indifferent. And again, this kind of comes back to what we were saying earlier about what kind of city it is. Using the extreme examples, if you're a lawful good character and you wander into a chaotic evil town, they may look at you as that knight in shining armor, and they may hate you immediately just for being what you are. And so at that point, yeah, maybe we can designate people as foes. But otherwise, if you were to lie to somebody, and if you were to fail in your lie, it would probably move you from being indifferent to unfriendly. Like, instantly. I mean, think about this logically and realistically. If I was to walk up to you in public and lie directly to your face, what would your opinion of me be? You would not like me. Now, does that designate you a foe or not? I'm going to go ahead and say probably not. However, if I continued to do so, it could move you down, or could move it down to hostile. Once you hit hostile, you are absolutely a foe. And so, at this point, sure, we can designate that person a foe and challenge them. Which is going to bring me to the next one. See, diplomacy is your way to try and talk things out with people. But what if you don't want to talk things out with people? That's when we come down to intimidate. The thing about intimidate is that intimidate and diplomacy are very, very similar. Both of them can be used to achieve the same ends. However, there is one very, very crucial difference between them. You can use diplomacy to convince somebody, and if you don't convince them, then you're just not going to get anything. And it tends to have a higher DC. Intimidate tends to have slightly lower DCs. However, coercing a target into acting friendly for hours takes 1d4 minute, or 1d4 times 10 minutes. Coercing a target into acting friendly for days requires a successful use of coercion at least once per week for 1d6 weeks without failing any intimidate checks against the target during that time. Essentially, this is torture. And if you fail, let's see. Coercion is overt, it is not subtle. In most cases, using coercion against a creature is an evil act. The coerced target acts as though it is friendly towards you when you are around, but the aid offer remains grudging at best. The target's true attitude is hostile, and the target believes it can, or if the target believes it can take an action to hinder you that cannot be traced back to it, it is likely to take such opportunities. If you try to intimidate somebody, it will almost always make them immediately hostile. You can also use it to demoralize opponents. Again, if you try to just blatantly demoralize somebody, it's going to make them hostile. Or influencing someone's attitude. You can use Intimidate to force an opponent to act friendly towards you. However, does it say anything? It does not. But if you try to influence someone's opponent or attitude towards you with intimidation, if you fail, it's pretty much just going to move them one step in the other direction. So if you're trying to move them from indifferent to friendly and fail, they will become unfriendly. If you try to intimidate them again and fail, they may just attack you on the spot. And so, if you're looking for an ability or a way to trigger this in somebody else, yeah, you can do that without ever lifting a finger. Now, if what you said is, like, if you taser them, well, now you're just outright attacking them. At which point, yeah, you're foes because you are now the foe to them. JP says hostile aid, a hilarious concept. It's the Ducat-Cisco relationship. Essentially, yeah, kinda. Not sure that Ducat is... Well, no, Ducat is absolute. I was thinking of Garrick for a moment. Garrick's not really hostile to Cisco. Ducat, though, yeah, he is. That's a good example. Okay. So getting back to Dethrone. So it's used in multiplayer conspiracy set. Again, I don't necessarily know what they mean by multiplayer. It's by default multiplayer. I guess they must mean that when you're playing with multiple people. As in, more than two. So what do it do? The reminder text says, whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life, or tied for the most life, put a 1/1 counter on it. Honestly, this seems annoying. Not that it can't be done, but it means it attacks the player, and given that the player is a planeswalker, we have to say attacks a planeswalker with the most life or tied for the most life. Put a 1/1 counter on it. That means that every time this thing attacks a planeswalker, we would actually have to determine who had the most life in the fight, as if combat doesn't drag enough as it is. But it can be done. So let's take a look at an example here. We've got Marchisa's Infiltrator. It's a blue creature. It costs 2+ blue to play. It's a 1/1 creature. And it has Dethrone. So if it hits the person with the most health, it gets a 1/1 counter on it. It also says that whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And again, I don't know what drawing a card is going to do for us. Because we're not drawing cards. Either way, though, we could leave this as it is and just make it really simple. Whenever it deals damage to a planeswalker. I think that we can leave this largely as it is, but we're going to have to make modifications like we did with the last one. So let's take a look. We're going to default format that. And here we go. Now, interestingly though, it does say whenever the creature attacks, not damages. Oh, and it was also only on 10 cards, so I guess it wasn't terribly popular. But whenever it attacks the player with the most life or is tied for the most life. So it doesn't even have to necessarily hit them. Let's see. So, dethrone triggers, yes, yes, yes. It also appeared as a one-off. They say basically nothing about this. It's like even Wizards of the Coast did not care about this ability. It says here that dethrone doesn't trigger if the creature attacks a planeswalker, even if its controller has the most life. Dethrone, or once it triggers, it doesn't matter what happens to the player's life totals before the ability to resolve. You'll put a 1/1 counter on the creature, even if the defending player doesn't have the most life as the ability resolves. The 1/1 counter is put on before blockers are declared. And something about a two-headed giant game, but I don't know what that is, and we're not doing it, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, whenever the creature attacks a player, we're going to have to change that. Now, since we're going to be changing this, so it's going to be any planeswalker, really. I'm just going to say attacks a planeswalker with the most life or tied for the most life, and that's going to be very important there because it means that not everyone is on the table. And it just occurred to me I spelled that wrong. There we go. With the most life or tied for the most life. Not put a 1/1 counter on it. I'm going to say it gains a +1 strength. And +1 Constitution counter bonus. Oh, and I just noticed something. I gotta go back to Tribute for a moment here because I put these numbers in here. This needs to be +X because this the Tribute may change, I think. Okay. And I spelled that wrong again. Constitution. I can do that. Alright, so that takes care of Dethrone. I'm not sure if it's the greatest ability or not. Mostly because it would require a little bit of metagaming, honestly, because there's almost no way for you to really know who is going to have the most hit points when you're playing in Pathfinder. The fact is that when you're playing most of these games, there is no way for you to know the details of the characters that you're fighting. So if you come across any enemy, let's just say it's bandits on the road, you are not going to know how many hit points do they have, what's their armor class, what weapons are they necessarily carrying, what damage do they do, what's their strength bonus, what's their dexterity bonus. These are things that you cannot know. There are some things in the game that can do that. However, otherwise, it's kind of a guessing game for you. And this is because in a real fight, you would never know how close your opponent is to going down. You just have to keep going until they eventually fall. I don't see this one getting a whole lot of use, and I don't see creatures with it being very popular. However, should you want to take one, it's there. So let's move on to the next one. Hidden Agenda. Hidden Agenda was found in the conspiracy cards in the multiplayer conspiracy sets, kind of like Dethrone. And so, what does Hidden Agenda mean? Start the game with this conspiracy face down in the command zone and secretly name a card. You may turn this conspiracy face up anytime and reveal the chosen name. It also comes with Double Agent. Start the game with this conspiracy face down in the commander zone, secretly name 2 different cards. You may turn this conspiracy face up at any time and reveal the chosen names. This sounds like it's not going to have any place in what we're doing, if I had to be honest. So these conspiracies have you secretly name a card before the game begins, anytime you have priority during the game, which is essentially your turn. You can turn the conspiracy face up and reveal the chosen name and what bonus the conspiracy gives cards of that or with that name. Let's take a look at an example if they have one. Actually, they have a couple examples. This is good. So the first example is this. Immediate action, and right off the bat, I can tell you I have never seen one of these cards before. So, I mean, there's no mana cost. You can't play this card. It says here, the Hidden Agenda, yes, we read that. Creatures you control with the chosen name have haste. Okay, interesting. Now, the weird thing about this is, it says in the commander zone, which like right off the bat, we're not using. This is going to be constructed, not commander. But even in a commander game, you can only have one of each individual card. And so the whole immediate action conspiracy thing can only apply to one card in your deck. It seems like a bad card. What about this one? Summoner's Bond. Again, it's another conspiracy. And I cannot read that tiny text, I'm sorry. So whenever you cast a creature spell with one of the chosen names, you may search your library for a creature card with the other chosen name, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. So that one's the one with Double Agenda. You name 2 different cards, and if you find one, you can gain the other. Again, it seems to depend a lot on actually finding those cards, and so I don't see this having any use in our game. Like, if you want to make a conspiracy, it's a role-playing game. Go ahead and make a conspiracy. You can conspire against anyone. You can conspire against everyone. But I don't think you can use these cards. So, unfortunately, just because it really has no use in our game, and no functional way to make it useful, it's going to be banned. And that's just all there is to it. This is a useless card for us. So, no taking conspiracy cards. You're not doing yourself any favors. Alright, next is Outlast. And this is from the Khans of Tarkir. It's on a whole 11 cards. It says it is the clan-specific mechanic for the Asbin House. Is this going to be like a different version of Ravnica? I don't know. It kind of sounds like it, though. So, Outlast. It's got a cost on it. Tap, put a 1/1 counter on the creature. Activate this only as a sorcery. Let's take a look. So Outlast grants a 1/1 counter on a creature for a small cost. 2 mana for commons, 1 mana for uncommons. The ability in and of itself is not complex, but the longevity given to the controller as a mana sink meant that it could be pushed too far. In cons, the counters were given bonus value through 6 counter lords, each granting their own keyword. Well, that sucks. Oh, PC Unicorn says, to be fair, conspiracy is considered useless in the actual game too. You know what? I believe that. It does seem kinda useless. Anyway. So there are 6 counter lords, each granting their own keywords, which means that we may have... Oh, goddamn. We may have, like, 6 keyword abilities that we have to go through with only 1 card. I mean, I guess that might make it easy. Kinda. Hopefully. Okay, 1 card cared about the activation of its ability, that being the Herald of Anafeza, and the final 2 Outlasters were printed with no other text, being defensively styled creatures. If we look at the Herald of Anafeza, it has Outlast that. Whenever you activate Herald of Anafeza's Outlast ability, put a 1/1 White Warrior creature token onto the battlefield. So someone's going to get a 1/1 token, and you're going to get a 1/1 soldier. Well, okay, a 1/1 warrior. Okay, I'm fine with that. And then final 2 Outlanders were printed with that. Okay. The mechanic was unpopular due to the ability reading poorly, despite its power leading to the high storm scale. Additionally, the invisible power made the design space small. Bad blockers and size scaling abilities were poor choices unless the cost was made much higher. It made singular reappearances in Modern Horizons, and was one of the non-evergreen, non-deciduous keywords included in the Unfinity sticker sheets. However, the ability itself is not that complicated. Pay mana, tap, and give a +1/+1 counter to or put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So not any other creature, just this creature. I think that's fine. All we have to do for this one is, for Outlast, just gain a +1 strength and +1 constitution. Why can I not spell that consistently? Counter bonus. And that's all we need. Oh, actually there is one more thing that I do need, and that is as a no, not a swift action, because it is tapping the creature. So it's going to be as a standard action. So you have to spend your turn giving yourself a +1 strength and +1 constitution bonus. And when you think about it that way, it's not really that great, because there's a lot of spells and such that will give a +2 bonus, which is an automatic ability modifier. And there's a lot of spells like the 6 animal spells in the arcane list that will give a +4 for varying times. I'm talking about things like Owl's Wisdom, Cat's Grace, Eagle's Splendor, things like that. Those are all a +4 bonus, far above what this is. And all of those are a single standard action, whereas this, there's I believe it's Bear Strength and Ox's Constitution or something like that. that would give you +4 strength and +4 constitution respectively, this Outlast ability would essentially give you both of those in half the time. Well, no, it wouldn't. It would give you both those in double the time. On one turn, you could cast Bear's Strength. On one turn, you cast Ox's Constitution and have that in 2 turns. Outlast would give you the same bonus in 4. So, just as it's kind of terrible in the actual card game, it's kind of terrible here too. But if you want to do it, you can. So let's take a look at the next one. The next one is Prowess. Keyword ability introduced as a clan-specific mechanic in the Jeskai way. Creatures of Prowess get +1/+1 till the end of their turn whenever a non-creature spell is cast by their controller. Okay, well, this is actually pretty easy. But again, this is going to be one of those where it's actually going to be severely nerfed by the format of Pathfinder. Since casting spells is going to be a standard action, or even if it was a swift action, you can only cast one of them per turn. The ultimate on this would be if you cast an instant spell and then a standard action, because you can do one instant. An instant or a swift action and then a standard action. So there are ways to maybe get around it. The only other thing that I can think of is, now that I'm thinking about this, okay, and I'm thinking pretty hard here. What if, and I'm not settling on this. I'm throwing this one out there as just I'm brainstorming here. What if instant cards remained as instant they remain as instant abilities, okay? Instant actions or immediate actions are a thing in Pathfinder. What if we turned sorceries into swift actions? What would that do for us? It would mean that you could cast a spell and a creature in the same turn. But that doesn't help Prowess, because you can still only cast an immediate or a swift action. You can't do both of them in one turn. And as your standard spell, you could cast a creature or an artifact or something like that. I mean, I guess if you summoned an artifact, that's a non-creature spell, and so you could get another +1/+1 token out of it. But it's going to be nerfed no matter how we do this. There's just no way that you could cast a whole bunch of little spells to really buff up the creature. And maybe that's by design too, because you wouldn't necessarily do a lot of that in Magic the Gathering either. Not to say that you can't. If you have enough mana rocks and, magic creatures on the field that you can tap for mana, maybe you could play 4 to 5 spells, but I don't think that's the usual. I do think that's the exception. So I don't see how useful this is. Still, though, all we have to do is translate it. And I do think that the basic text works pretty well. We just have to rewrite a little bit of it to make it work for us. So we'll default format that, and then format painter it. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets a +1/+1 till end of turn. We're gonna add to this, so a +1 strength and +1 constitution counter bonus until the end of its turn. Because again, this is on your turn. When you cast a non-creature spell, this creature will get the bonus, but it's not that creature's turn. So we have to specify until the end of its next turn. And there, that ought to work. I don't think it's the best ability, but it'll work. So the next one is Dash. This seems like it should be simple. Let's see how they complicate it. Dash is a keyword ability on permanents that allow a player to play the card for an alternative cost. When you pay the dash cost, instead of paying the mana cost, the creature will have haste, so it can attack that turn. At the beginning of the next step, you will return it from the battlefield to its owner's hand. Interesting. So essentially, it gets one turn, and then it's just gone. It seems simple. Let's take a look. The Goblin Heel Cutter. Of course it's a goblin. So it's a 3/2 that costs 3+ red to play. Whenever it attacks, target creature cannot block this turn. So you can designate a target that can't make an attack of opportunity. And it has dash 2+ red. So it costs you 1 less to play it as a dash. It'll come in, it'll make its attack, and then on your next turn, it's gone. Okay, right. I think we can just copy this. But we may have to add more to it. So, copy, paste, and then we'll format this. Let's see. PC Nocrin says, Ragavan. Use that card, people hate it. I have no idea what that is. But I know how to find out. Let's do a search on that one. Ragavan. Ragavan, the Nimble Pilfer. This is the only one with dash, so this must be it. So, Ragavan is a 2/1 legendary monkey pirate that only costs 1 to play. However, if you hold off and pay the dash cost, the dash cost actually costs more than its normal summoning. And it says, whenever Ragavan, the Nimble Pilferer, deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, and then exile the top card of that player's library. Until the end of turn, you may cast that card. Wow, that is awful. Thanks, I hate it. Alright, dash though. So you may cast a spell for the dash card, or the dash cost. That's fine. If you do, it gains haste. And I think we already covered haste. Did we cover haste? I think we did. Haste should be in, yeah, haste. So, summoned creature shares the planeswalker's initiative and acts immediately next. So we got that. So it gains haste, and it is returned from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Alright, so we don't have an end step. So that's going to go away entirely. What we're going to do... I'm going to go ahead and add something here. If you do... No, I'm not going to put this here. So it gains haste, and it returns from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. This is what needs to change. So we're going to go ahead and delete this. Okay? And it is unsummoned at the end of its controller's next turn. Now, importantly, because it did come back to your hand, the controller gains +1 spell per day. Because again, it is coming back to your hand, and you can then re-summon it. Which means that until the thing dies, you are not using up a spell per day. You simply have to pay for it every single turn. In this way, it's not too dissimilar from Upkeep, except that with Upkeep, the cost to keep the creature on the field continues to grow. With this, you simply have to dedicate yourself to resummoning it every single turn. And so that should be sufficient, I think. Alright, next one then. Dash was pretty easy. What about the next one? Exploit. So, Exploit is introduced in Dragons of Tarkir, where it was the signature ability of the Blue-Black clan Silumgar. Silumgar? I don't know. Anyway, it's on 26 cards, which is kind of a lot. And what do it say? Exploit. When this creature enters, you may sacrifice a creature. That's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room there. When it enters, you may sacrifice a creature. I'm going to go ahead and just assume it's a creature you control. I don't think you're allowed to sacrifice your opponent's creatures. It says here, when a creature enters the battlefield, the player may sacrifice a creature. Each creature with exploit has another ability that gives the player a benefit when it exploits a creature. Meaning that when the player sacrificed a creature because of its exploit ability, Henry Wu, InGen Geneticist, and Profaner of the Dead are the only exploiters that track the qualities. And this is a legendary creature. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on. There we go. That is a fancy card. Unfortunately, it's a little hard to read, but it does cost black, green, and blue, which necessitates a minimum of a 3-color deck. Let's see. Henry Wu, InGen Geneticists, and other human creatures you control have exploit. Whenever creature you control exploits a non-human creature, draw a card. If the exploited creature had power 3 or greater, create a treasure token. Okay, so we're getting into treasure tokens, food tokens, things like that. I'm going to have to define all of those too. Those are going to be interesting just because of the nebulous nature of them. So exploit will allow you to sacrifice only one creature. You don't have to sacrifice a creature, but if you do, you choose which one as the exploit ability resolves. You can sacrifice the creature with exploit, or you can sacrifice the creature with exploit to its own ability. If that creature has an ability that triggers when this creature exploits a creature, sacrificing itself to its own exploit ability will cause that ability to trigger. And finally, the creature with exploit needs to still be on the battlefield as you sacrifice the creature in order for that when this creature exploits a creature ability to trigger. If it's not on the battlefield as its exploit ability resolves, you can still sacrifice a creature, but you better have another good reason because the last ability won't trigger. Wait, that seems contradictory? So if it has a when this creature exploits a creature, sacrificing itself will cause it to trigger. Okay. But when this creature exploits a creature, if it's not on the battlefield as its exploit ability resolves, you can still sacrifice a creature, but its last ability won't trigger. I don't get it. That seems directly contradictory. But here's the Silumgar Butcher. It costs 4 black to play. It's a 3/3 creature with exploit. And when it exploits another creature, target creature gets a -3/-3 until end of turn. Which again, pretty significant. That would kill a lot of creatures. In Pathfinder, it would not kill a lot of creatures. However, dropping somebody's constitution by 3 points would take away anywhere from 1 to 3 HP per level. And if that drops them to 0 HP, they're dead. But, as far as the ability goes, I mean, it's pretty simple. When this creature enters, you may sacrifice a creature. I don't even need to change that. Default formatting. I'm going to change something. Because I'm going to say that when this creature not enters, but I'm going to say when this creature is summoned, you may sacrifice a creature. Now, one of the things that I have mentioned before that we may need to specify is sacrifice a creature. What does that mean? Does that mean that I can sacrifice one of my party members? I think the answer is no. I think that for it to be a creature, it has to be an echo that you or another planeswalker has summoned. And that will lead to kind of some weirdness. Because when we have like a spell that targets a creature or player, we know that player is planeswalker. But does that mean that it can only target a planeswalker? Why can it not target the fighter over there next to the planeswalker? There's some weird language there that we're gonna have to deal with. But there's also things that we're gonna have to establish. For example, unsummon. Unsummon is a staple in blue decks. So, unsummon. It's been around forever. Literally. Right there. It says A. You know what that stands for? Alpha. It's literally one of the first cards ever made. And all it is return target creature to its owner's hand. Well, what happens if you cast that on someone's dog? You can't unsummon somebody's dog. It wasn't summoned in the first place. So we're gonna have to go through and define some of these things. Again, that's gonna come down to the whole like return thing that we'll do when we go back into the normal keywords that we should have done first. Lessons learned. So yeah, when this creature is summoned, you may sacrifice a creature. It's simple. Let's move on to something that's going to be not simple. I hate it already because I know what's coming. And I don't want to do it. Let's move on to Menace. So, Menace is an evergreen keyword ability. Creatures with Menace can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. How in the hell are we going to make this work? So for starters, we've already established that blocking is not a thing. When we say block, we mean an attack of opportunity. So a creature with Menace cannot be the target of an attack of opportunity except by 2 or more creatures. Do you realize how incredibly niche that is? Like, in order for you to do that, you would literally have to run through, like, a crowd of people. And maybe that's not the worst thing. So a creature with Menace could literally run right past somebody, an individual person, and I guess that person would just be too terrified to actually try and stop them. But if you try to run through a crowd of people, the crowd might try to stop them. I mean, I guess it kind of works. It is on 291 cards. This could be incredibly broken. I mean, I don't need to go too much into it because the rules are pretty simple. We're going to copy and paste this. So this creature cannot be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Instead, we're going to have to change this. So cannot be the target of attacks of opportunity except by 2 or more. It doesn't necessarily have to be creatures. It could be anyone. By 2 or more foes. We'll use that word. That way, now, it doesn't matter what you're running through. If you're running through a crowd of people and they're hostile in any way, they get attacks of opportunity, and if there's 2 or more, you're getting hit. It does make things a little bit more niche. It is not a bad thing. That was actually pretty easy. I thought that was going to be a lot worse. Okay, next is Renown. So, Renown was introduced in Magic Origins. Creatures with the Renown keyword become renowned, and they gain 1/1 counters the first time they deal combat damage to a player. Seems overly specific, but okay. It was only on 20 cards. So, it was a designation with no rules, meaning similar to Monstrous. Cards with Renown and others like Enshrouding Mist reference the Renown designation, while Monstrosity abilities can be activated with no effect. If the creature is already monstrous, Renown abilities do not trigger at all if the creature is already Renowned. As such, Renown will trigger only once per creature so long as that creature remains on the battlefield. Oh, interesting. I thought this would happen every time. Oh, I see. If it isn't renowned, put counters on it. Alright, that's fine. So let's take a look at their example here, the Relic Seeker. It's a 2/2 that costs 1 plus white to play, and it's got Renown 1. So if it deals damage to a player, it gets a 1/1 counter on it. And it says, when the Relic Seeker becomes renowned, you may search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Since there's really no need for you to do searching, like, half of this card is already kind of useless, but the renown still works. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to copy this. And we're going to pretty much rewrite it to do what we want it to do. We're going to keep everything, of course, within the abilities, or within what the game says, but we're going to change a lot of things. So whenever this creature deals combat to a damaged player, if it is not renowned... Actually, no. This is actually worded really well. Put a +1/+1. We just have to rewrite that one part. Okay, so we're going to delete those. And it's going to be... Actually, I'm going to delete all of this. It gains a +X strength and +X constitution counter bonus, and it becomes renown. And did I spell that wrong again? I sure did. Alright, that should be all we need for that one. So it can only gain that it becomes renowned after it deals the damage, and given Pathfinder, there's no way to really block these things, just like outright. There's a very good chance that it will be very easy for any of your creatures to gain renown. Just on its turn, have it attack and successfully hit and harm a planeswalker. And so, actually, I do need to change that. To a planeswalker. Which could be you, it could be your friend, it could be an enemy, whatever it happens to be. Or even better yet, what if, going on the basis that creatures are summoned, they are the echoes summoned by a planeswalker, what if we simply said, whenever this creature deals damage to a non-creature? Now, what does that mean? Well, you can't normally deal damage to land. You can't deal damage to enchantments. You can't usually deal damage to artifacts, unless you just straight up destroy them. However, non-creature, given that creatures are summoned, we're talking about planeswalkers, we're talking about humans, elves, orcs, whatever they happen to be. We're talking about literally everything except for the summoned creatures. I think that will work for our purposes. We may need to get into like actual definitions there. Okay, next up is Awaken. Sounds like fun. Alright, Awaken is a keyword ability that provides an alternative cost. If the spell is cast for its Awaken cost, in addition to its other effects, it animates a land you control as a 0/0 elemental with +1/+1 counters on it. Oh no. Alright, I was not prepared for that. Okay, this actually should not be that big of a problem, and I will explain why. So first off, I want to see their example because I want to have something to bounce off of here. Sheer Drop, it's a sorcery. Let's be on creature spells actually. Maybe it is on some. How many is it on? It's on a whole 15 cards, which is not much. Alright, Sheer Drop. It is a white sorcery that costs 2+ white to play. It says destroy tapped creature, and it has Awaken 3. That is 5+ white. If we cast the spell for 5+ white, also, so in addition to the effect, put 3 1/1 counters on target land you control, and it becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. It is still a land. This is going to be not as complicated as I think it will be. Here's the thing. Every single land that we're talking about here has a certain elemental affinity. So it must be either white, black, green, red, or blue. Each one of those has a certain type of elemental affinity. So we're going to create elementals. PC Unicorn says, find the nearest rock. Gorignac, get him! Sure, I guess. I don't know what Gorignac is. It's a weird name for a rock. However, I'm going to go to the bestiary here. And I want... elementals. They're going to be outsiders. Angels. Scrolling. Demons. Lots of demons. So many demons. Devils. And PC Worker says, Galaxy Quest. You really haven't seen that? I really haven't seen that. I don't watch a lot of movies. Mostly just because I don't have time. I mean, I just got around to seeing the first episode of Invincible last night. And that's all I've seen so far, just because I don't have time to watch them. But no, I haven't seen Galaxy Quest. I've heard good things about it, though. Does that count? Does that help? JP starts chanting, Gorignac, Gorignac, Gorignac. I feel like I'm missing the joke here, and now I'm sad. Anyway, you know what beats the sadness? Finding my elementals. Okay, Eidolons. Oh, here we go. Peace Corner says, "Oh my God, making you watch that." I feel like I need something. I feel like I need something here. Images. Here we go. Open you in a new tab so that I can get this. Yeah, I feel like I need this. Is this where we're at now? All right, I need my elementals. So here's the thing about the about turning lands into creatures. We already technically have those. We call them elementals, and there's many different types. I'm going to go ahead and just come here because when it comes to creating elementals, we only have a few options. So true elementals are simple creatures or thriving spirits of pure elemental matter. We got that. So there's the air elemental, obviously. Belkers, they're kind of like wood elementals. Chrismals are crystal elementals, kinda. But then we get into earth elementals, fire elementals, ice elementals. Invisible stalkers are part of the air category, but they're different. Lightning elementals, magma elementals, mud. There is technically a sand, but they're pretty rare. And then there's water elementals. So if we had to think about this, and we do have to think about this, I'm going to go ahead and put right here. And I'm going to say plains, swamps. I'm going to say mountains and islands and forest. Okay? I'm gonna do that. The reason I'm gonna do that no, I don't want a bracket. I want that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and format this. The alignment, I want it centered and vertical. So that I can go ahead and go ahead and do that. So all those will come down there. So we need to be able to assign a type of elemental for each one of these. Now, some of this is going to be kind of easy. Some of it is going to be kind of not easy. For example, mountains. What exactly are we going to do for mountains? And the reason I say this is because there's several different kinds of mountains that fall into this category. And actually, if I come here to the advanced search, creature types, creature subtypes, elemental, and add and search. Nothing? Oh, wait, that's the question elemental. I didn't... Why is that even a thing? I just want regular elementals. And that's not even going to work. Okay, now you're pissing me off. How about that? We'll do that instead. Alright. So, air elemental. Air elemental here is blue. Alright. So, if it's blue, we'll come down here to islands and we'll just put in air. Right? Should be simple. But here's where it's going to get not simple. Air cult elemental, arboretum elemental is green. An arboretum is a greenhouse for trees, essentially. So we're looking at a wood elemental, which again is where we come back to here and we look at like this Belker thing. At least I think it's a tree. Is it not a tree? Yeah, I think it's a tree. No, actually it says here, Belkers are hateful elemental air creatures resembling fiends. Alright, so never mind. Don't really have a wood elemental. But there are other things that we could do. My immediate thought would be a treant. So, possibly that? Alright, let's go back and look at some more of these. Not awaken. Here we go. Elementals. So we'll say the Arboretum Elemental, that would be like a treant. The Ardent Elementalist. Don't care, you're not an actual elemental. Here we go. Blue, the Blizzard Elemental. Again, we're talking about ice now, which I think we have? Yeah, Ice Elemental. So for blue, we've got air and ice. And we keep going down through the list. The Bloodpire Elemental, pretty sure it's made out of fire. It says elementals... Oh, I can't read. Oh, here we go. Elementals born of June are cruel and unstable as the plane itself. Yeah, it looks like it's made out of fire. So we can just go ahead and say Fire Elemental for red. Who saw that coming? Let's see. Blue Elemental Blast. No, it's a spell. I'm looking for creatures. Here we go. Black is the Bog Elemental. But we don't really have that. And when we look at our elementals here, air is blue. Earth is probably going to end up being, well, it could be green. I don't know yet. Fire elementals are obviously going to be red. Ice is blue. Lightning is probably going to be red. In fact, I do believe I even have the lightning elemental card. It's red. Magma elemental will be red. Mud, though, I don't know. I have no idea where the bog is going to fit in. So, how do we... Actually, well, no, that's not going to work. I was going to say, we could just turn the swamp into the bog elemental, but no, that wouldn't work. Because we have to remember, Awaken simply puts them into play with the X tokens on them. So, like, the Sheer Drop has Awaken 3, however, the Bog Elemental is a 5/4 creature. So we can't just turn it into that creature. The Boreal Elemental, again, it's kind of freezy. It's a nice elemental. I don't necessarily know how to do this, with one exception. We still haven't gone through and done our creature conversion. Now, when we do that, what we're going to be doing is, we already know that the power and toughness are going to become strength and constitution. That means, however, that we still need to fill in the dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma for each of these creatures, because each one of them will need to have kind of a micro character sheet. And we'll have to make it scalable, and we'll have to make it easily scalable so that this can be done on the fly. So, Elemental is going to need to have a dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma modifier or value. We could, instead of trying to tie these into the actual elementals, we could postpone this and come back to it later. And in doing so, we'll simply be able to say, we already know that for, say, this sudden drop, or sheer drop, that the strength and constitution are going to be 13 and 13. And then we simply make the rest of the values so we can plug those together, just kind of shuffle them into one stack, which will give us our strength, dex, con, int, whiz, charisma. I think that might be the way to go, instead of trying to tie this into actual elementals. While this is cool, I don't think this works. So we're going to ignore all of that. And I don't know why this is now suddenly... Okay. Format painter. There. Done. Okay, so Awaken. We're going to go ahead and we're going to copy in the text for it, but as far as what it does, we're not going to have this, we're not going to have it fully done until we can actually start creating creatures. Now, this does mean that it's not going to be a treant, but it will still be a forest elemental, which is essentially a treant. Alright, so if you cast this card, if you cast this card, this spell for the Awaken cost. You also put N11 counters on creature or target land you control, and it becomes an elemental. Here's what we're going to do here, because we don't need to we don't need to do the or to have it still be a land. But what we do need to do is limit it actually. So we're going to create an elemental creature. Actually, I'm going to redo that. Create a creature elemental with X strength and X constitution. And that should be all we really need to do. However, we are limited by the land itself. After all, if you were to play this card and you only have, one land, you can't play another card and create another one because you don't have another land to do it. Obviously, you couldn't even play the card if you only have one land, but that you get the point. So, do this. Oh, wait. No. There can only be a maximum of X elementals, where X is the total mana of the land. There we go. So again, when we go back to our mana system, we look at our land here that has 4 white, 3 blue, 2 black, 2 red, and 3 green. That means that if you had planeswalkers here who were constantly summoning elementals, you would be capped at 8 plus 6, 14. The minute that you try to summon a 15th, it fails. It just doesn't work because there's nothing left. You have already elementaled all of the land. even that would still be kind of crazy though, especially like with this card here, this sheer drop. It says destroy target tapped creature. Essentially, if you had two planeswalkers and they both knew this spell, and it is a common spell, so I don't see a reason why they couldn't learn it. You could just constantly be summoning and destroying elementals the entire time. Although, I do have to say, it destroys target tapped creature. We already established that tapping a creature would be dazing them. However, that's not the only thing that... Ooh, actually, that's going to get ugly. Because if the creature attacks, it's tapped. I hadn't considered that. Oh well, we'll deal with that when we get to what tapping actually means with the definitions. In the meantime, though, that's going to work for Awaken. It's going to be a little on the complicated side, and it means you'll have to carry more character sheets with you. I mean, there'll be mini sheets, but still, you'll need to have them. But I think it'll work. Alright, so, that was Awaken, and unfortunately, I'm out of time. So, we're going to have to leave Devoid for next time. But what is it? I'm curious. The characteristic defining ability keyword that states that a card is colorless regardless of the colors in that card's mana cost. Oh. Wow. That's actually super easy. Devoid. This card has no color. It's on 132 cards. That's enormous. This was first seen in the dual decks Zendikar versus Eldrazi. Remember the Eldrazi? They're the ones that, like, eat planes. Because of its characteristic defining ability, cards with Devoid are colorless at all times, including when not on the battlefield or outside of the game. It does not change the card's color identity, though, which is defined by the combination of all colors indicated on the card. So, it could still cost red to play, but it doesn't count as a red creature. Like, we got the Dominator drone down here. It costs 2 plus black to play, but it does not identify as a colored card. Okay? So, we've got that to go through next time. Should be interesting. I kind of like all the stuff with Eldrazi in it, even though I think I kind of hate the Eldrazi as a concept. So, that being said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap things up here. We did make good progress. I didn't do a count. How many things did we get through today? We started with Bestow, and that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We only got 11 done today. It's not bad, though. We're up to 113 out of 175. Yeah, we're making slow progress. But we did ban a card today, and I feel like we're going to see that more and more as we get into the later ones. Anyway, though, if you're enjoying this and you want to see more of it, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon. That way you get notified when the videos or streams come out. Especially when I manage to do them, ahead of time. I was kind of late on this one. However, if you're, enjoying this and you want to share it out with somebody else who likes Magic the Gathering or Pathfinder, I encourage you to share it. Bring more people back here. We're all friendly here. We can use more friends. I can always use more friends. I'm not social enough as it is. Anyway, otherwise, if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video. If you know somebody else if you know somebody else. If you want to meet us, if you want to play with us, if you want to do any of that stuff, you can comment down below. Or, I encourage you to join the Discord server. Come to the Behind the Screens channel. There, you can let me know what kind of games you're interested in and what your availability is, and once I have enough people interested in a game, I can begin that game. So if you want to play with us, join the Discord. Otherwise, though, if you're not interested in playing, you just want to be here for the streams, then I will see you next week, where we'll continue with the definitions. It's a slow process. So I hope to see you there, and until then, take care.